when I was listening to that podcast as well, talking about the subconscious, um, like most people who have gone through high school maybe have an intro psych class that they're offered, and they're taught about Freud and maybe the iceberg theory of the unconscious and the subconscious and the conscious.
Mhm.
So most people have like a general knowing of what it is, but I don't think it's really talked about in the context that you, or in the depth that you talked about it in. And I think it was really helpful to hear about it. So um, it would be awesome if you could explain a bit more about how our subconscious does affect us every day while we don't know.
Yeah, well, it's a very massive topic for sure. Um, I mean, well, it depends on like what you believe about being born. You know, are you born with as a blank slate? Are you born with the ability to go so far with a certain personality or a certain physical ability? But in general, we're constantly absorbing how our body is reacting, the thoughts and emotions of the people around us before we can even call them thoughts or emotions, and everything that's going on in our external environment. And so what happens when we're going on autopilot, because we are absorbing so much information, sensory information, internal information, all at the same time. And our brain needs to not focus on all of that at the same time. And so what our brain does is it has the capacity to memorize certain aspects of your internal and your external environment. That's how we go on autopilot. It's that we don't have to consciously be aware of tying our shoes, walking left foot, right foot, eating food, swallowing food. Like we forget that we were taught how to do all of those things. Besides, you know, the reason why I called my podcast Your Unconscious is Showing instead of like Your Subconscious is Showing is because we have subconscious thoughts and emotions, but we also have unconscious body mechanisms where if we're like knocked out, we're still breathing, our heart is still racing, or our heart is still beating, like we're still alive. And so those are unconscious. Our immune system is functioning. And then we have our subconscious. And what happens is that our brain will take certain aspects of things that we know maybe are going to happen on a regular basis, and we'll memorize them so that we don't have to have them in our conscious awareness, so we can learn new things or look out for danger. And so what happens over time with autopilot, let's say with someone that experiences trauma, is their body and their mind is going to get used to being out and looking out with a radar for something that's traumatic. And so that's like part of like anxiety disorders, panic disorders, trauma disorders, is like we'll become triggered by our internal and external environment because subconsciously and unconsciously it's connected to these memories or these sensations of trauma. And if we are happy-go-lucky and we haven't had any trauma that we've experienced in our lives, then subconsciously, like, we think it's all good. And we can't really relate to someone that's having a panic attack because you're like, I don't understand. Everything seems fine. And it's with the education to be like, oh, okay, this person's having a panic attack. This is probably what's happening in their body. This is a few reasons why they may be having that panic attack. And here's how their subconscious or unconscious may be interacting right now, because I know consciously that everything is fine, but this person's subconscious or unconscious is activated and their conscious is turned off. Because if they were conscious, then they would be where I am and be like, oh, there's nothing going on. And so that's like an example of how someone that's conscious and doesn't have trauma in their subconscious could be disconnected and misunderstand someone that's not conscious and has trauma in their subconscious. And so our brain wants to protect us, wants to keep us safe. And that's why we're going to look out for things that make us scared. We're going to look out for things that could help, that could end our lives, because we're surviving beings and we don't want that to happen. And so it's, what does your subconscious look like? What did your parents teach you? What did your culture teach you? What did your trauma teach you? What did your lack of trauma teach you? And then, are you your subconscious? Or, and okay, so I'm called the truth doctor. I believe that truth is unadulterated reality. It's all the shit that hasn't been affected, which is not much from the moment that we're born. But you have this true core to who you really are. And it's taking a look at your subconscious and seeing, what do I really believe? What am I conditioned to believe? And then what do I want to do about it? And so that's kind of what my whole platform is like, you're not who you think you are, you're not what you think you are, and the world around you and all the people around you are also not who you think they are or what you think is going on. And so it's like dismantling almost the entire cognitive map that we've created through our whole existence.